questions we had from a couple people is where you work within HP, because HP is a massive company, right? So
Massive.
and I guess there's rumors that it's splitting into two. So which side of that equation do you fall on?
Yeah, it is actually, it factually is splitting into two. And it'll be, one company is going to be called HP Inc., which will comprise of the printers and personal systems, computers. And the other half is, will be Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, which is where I work, which is focused, I mean, the split hasn't happened yet. It'll happen in about a year. But that's more where we're focused on enterprise solutions around cloud, security, and storage.
So your customer are very large companies with very big enterprise computing needs.
Not necessarily large companies, but with big enterprise computing needs, yes.
Okay, all right. So I think it's good to clear that up, and I want to come back to HP, but you have a pretty rich experience in social marketing and PR. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So first question, when did you join Twitter?
I joined Twitter in June of 2007.
Oh, wow, so it's very early. So why did you join Twitter?
Well, that's a good question we were all asking ourselves at the time. And I have no...
You still don't know.
I have no idea what my first tweet was. Somebody had asked me that the other day. And I'm not really a big tweeter. I use Twitter all the time, but I don't tweet personally myself. I'm the lurker statistic. But we heard about it, and so we put...
You were at Southwest Airlines.
I was at Southwest, and we heard about it. Might have heard about it from Robert Scoble.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, that might have been the person we first heard about it from. And so we were at that phase where we already kind of knew we needed to secure Southwest brand on channels as they were popping up. So we opened an account, and we all opened an account. I remember we had like 13 followers, and we were just like, I'm in the car, I'm at Schlitz, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm just doing all that silly stuff when you're trying to figure out what it was. And then suddenly we had 200 followers, and then 2,000, and then 200,000. And it was a really wild time to see this channel that no one knew what it was grow to be a revenue generator and a customer service tool and a crisis management tool. It was fascinating.
So at the time you were working in PR?
Yeah.
For Southwest Airlines.
Right.
So when did you, maybe it was before that, maybe it was after that, but when did you realize you were working in social media?
So I always view myself as working in PR.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So you're still PR in your mind.
I still view myself as working in PR and corporate communication, but I do social and digital within that realm.
Okay.
So when I was at the agency, I sort of tilted between PR and marketing a little bit more, but I view myself as a comms person. But let's see, it was 2006. I'm sure you've heard this story, but Southwest had done a reality show with A&E. Does anyone remember that show? It was called Airline. You remember? Yeah. Well, if you remember that show, you might have. Anybody think, what the heck were they thinking? I don't know. It was kind of A&E came to us and asked if we would do this reality show, and they said, here's the catch: is that you'll have no editorial control of the show. And so we had to decide: do we trust our employees to represent us well? And so we did. The show was a huge success for us. The show would air on Monday nights. The next day, our revenue would jump like 7%. So it was on for about 4 seasons, and it was a game changer for us in terms of marketing and communication. And so when the blogosphere started to percolate, the show had just gone off the air, so we dove in head first. That was pre-Twitter, that was pre-Facebook, so we were bloggers before we were anything else.
So that jumps me right into the blog. I would love to hear more about that. I mean, Southwest Airlines, for people that don't know, is still to this day one of the great examples of a corporate blog.
You do a great job.
And you were there when it started. You were a big part of starting it, and it was in response to this show and keeping that conversation going a lot. Early on, was there a pressure or any type of impetus to track something? Like, was there a metric for business success for the blog, or was it just conversation with the customers?
Yeah, no, we had to beg people to look at our metrics. Like, nobody cared. It was like early days, which now looking back, it's like, oh, good old days when nobody paid attention to what you were doing. It was great. You could kind of fly under the radar. But no, we started this blog, and we didn't even know if people would look. And so you're like, oh my gosh, people are actually coming here. And then the metrics, it changed from just getting traffic to actually, communicating important messages to customers.
And do you think they're still doing, I know you're not there anymore, but you stay in touch with your Southwest family. Like, are they still kind of running that same blueprint today? Has it changed at all?
I don't know. I don't look at the blog too much, just because there's only
You're
so
not
many.
Checking it every day.
Only so many hours. I do occasionally when they have big news and I want to see what's going on, and I'm happy for them. But yeah, no, I don't follow their formula every day. I think I don't know. I could start to guess, but I'd be speculating.
Okay, so let's jump. You went to Linhart PR after Southwest. One of my favorite moments on the Social Rush stage is when Paula complained that nobody told her about timesheets in agency world after she had made the agency jump. But outside of timesheets, what were the differences in working in your roles compared before and after from a brand side to the agency side, and how does that kind of influence what you think about social marketing and digital marketing today?
Yeah, that is, I mean, seriously, leaving Southwest after 10 years was such a big decision. I asked like a million people and no one once mentioned timesheets. I was so blown. The first week after being there, the CFO was like, have you entered your time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. So the question is, what's the difference between the agency and brand side?
Yeah.
I missed the brand side. The thing I love about the brand side is the fight. I feel like when you're inside a brand, you're so much more connected to everything going on in the company, not just the thing you've been hired to do or that scope of work that you've been given, but you can start a movement within a company. You can get alliances, and you can get to know people, and you can get down to like the heart and soul of things and really try to make a difference. And I also I like being a mile deep and an inch wide. I like really pouring myself 100% into one thing. And so for me, I think brand side is just a better fit.
Very cool. So I love that, and I love it. Feels like it's more your baby. You have more control over it.
Yeah.
And on the agency side, unfortunately, even though there are some benefits, you kind of lose that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's perks that you get to learn so much, and that you're working with different kinds of brands, different kinds of projects. But yeah, I like just that, attaching my entire heart and soul to it, and
Yeah.
rising and falling with it.
Very cool. So we're starting a podcast at Social Fresh, and it's going to be called the Social Media Toolset. And
Okay.
we're focusing on tools and what people actually use from your smartphone to check Twitter personally to analytics. So what are some of the tools that you use? You know, similar to Sarah Evans' presentation earlier, she gave us 100. I'm not going to make you give us
Yeah.
100, but you know, what are maybe 3 things? What kind of phone do you use, for instance?
I use an iPhone.
Okay. And what do you use to check Twitter? What social network are you on the most? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I certainly am not as up on all the tools as Sarah is.
Well, it can be very simple. Jason Miller at LinkedIn, he still uses twitter.com. He's very proud of that fact. You know, I think for every person, there's a perfect solution, and none of it's better or worse, right?
Yeah. So I use an iPhone. I use Hootsuite on my phone and on my desktop. Those are my primary tools, but that's only because I'm managing multiple accounts. I mean, I don't think I'd be, so that makes just using twitter.com difficult. And then personally, like I said, I get all my news from Twitter. I'm on Twitter all day long, but I almost never tweet. Although I had my 20-year reunion last weekend, and I just discovered a few tweets that I didn't quite remember sending. So there were some interesting ones. There was one that said, I just ordered 16 tequila shots. This night is not going to end well. But it ended great. It ended great.
It's documented for everybody to see
Yeah.
now. It's like Clay said, it's like the NSA's following
I still
you.
use Swarm. I still use Foursquare and Swarm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're traveling a lot and out and about. I just moved up to a new city, so kind of seeing where people are, it's helpful just personally, not for work.
I use Swarm/Foursquare/ the most confusing weird app
I
thing
know,
that's ever
so
happened. I use it as an historical record. Simply, I mean, even if nobody
was
knows
I?
I checked in, it syncs to my Google Calendar, and I have it saved of wherever I've checked in. So
Yep.
you know. Okay, what about on the business side? Are you using Hootsuite for both personal and business, or
Yep.
is that?
Yep, I use Hootsuite for personal and business. For measurement, we use Radian 6. I use Brandwatch sometimes.
Very cool. And how are you guys measuring at HP today? I know you're doing the long form, and maybe it's not the magazine, but what are kind of the
Yeah.
systems that you're using to measure
Well,
that
like you
success?
said, I mean, HP's huge, so we have different people doing different things. The majority of our consumer social is managed out of our marketing department by a gal named Michaela Doherty, and so they would use a different set of tools, and they have different needs and different things to measure, which is sort of my point of what I was saying earlier, that just everything's, not that one thing is better or right than the other, just that everything's changing and you just can't take anything for granted anymore. Things that maybe worked before might not get you the results that they used to. So just kind of constantly redoing that. But for us, I mean, on my side, on the enterprise side right now, we are looking at actual connections and engagement and viewership and readership from our target audience. That's it. And so we're using 2 things I didn't mention in the presentation that we're using a lot are Taboola and Outbrain.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with Taboola and Outbrain? Like content content placement. So anytime you're on a website, be it New York Times or Forbes, and you see related content at the bottom of the page, Taboola and Outbrain power that. So it's actually quite affordable way to place your content in front of highly targeted audiences.
It's really great. We actually tested some for this conference, and it performed pretty well for us. And we compared it against an email buy, a couple huge email lists that people are probably familiar with, targeted to social marketers, and the affordability and success of Outbrain for us compared to email buys. And I love email till today. I mean, we still use email for some things, but for buying an ad in email, it was just not comparable. I mean, it was 10, 20 times more successful using Outbrain. So
it is. It's I mean, a huge driver of traffic to our site, and we feel like it's high quality traffic at the same time.
Yeah, because I mean, and for those of you that haven't used it, you can do it very affordably. You can do a super small budget to start and see the success. And some of the websites that drove the most traffic for us were things that you were very comfortable with, things like Mashable or things like People magazine, or I mean, very common, websites that you would be very happy to have your ad on. It's not necessarily showing up on, a mom blog that you don't want to have an ad on if you're advertising engineers or something.
A great thing you can do with it too is really aggressively A/B test headlines and content. And so we will use Taboola and Outbrain to A/B test our content and headlines, and then kind of revise our site before sort of publishing that out to other groups for them to take that content and make the most of it.
Very cool. All right, so final questions, 2 parts. What's your favorite piece of content, like most successful piece of content you've ever created? And it would be personal or on the business side. So maybe it's a blog post at Southwest for the business side, or something. Maybe it's the magazine you're doing for HP. On the personal side, it could be anything. You post the 16 tequila shots and it got 100 likes. Whatever you think of.
So on the personal side, 2 things come to mind. One, I wrote a Father's Day. I read an article in USA Today about how people look to CEOs as father figures. And at the time, my father was very sick. I'm going to get all teared up. But the executives at Southwest absolutely were father figures to me. So I wrote a blog post about that. And then the other one, when I left Southwest, I don't know if you remember this. I wrote a list of 68 reasons why I had loved working at that company, and it's such an amazing place, and still will always be a huge part of my life. And so it was just a small tribute to my time there. On the professional side, some of my favorite content were the ones that responded to crises, because it was the real changing of the time with blogging. Everyone, it was all culture, it was all soft and fuzzy, and then what you realize is when people are looking at you, when they really want to hear from your brand, brands go silent.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we're going to hide and not talk about it. But so I loved the content when we could get right in front of something. News is breaking, we are on it, this is our position. I felt like the better we were at that, the faster we were at it, the more we could control the message, but just help to shape it and influence it. At HP right now, my favorite piece of content that we've created is a very long form piece, about 2,000 words, about how baby boomers are about to completely revolutionize transportation. And it's fascinating. You think it's millennials, you think it's all of us that are going to change transportation, but it's really going to be the needs of this aging population that are going to drive forward things like driverless cars, connected cars,
very cool.
Connected cities. So
I love that.
It's fascinating stuff.
Awesome. Round of applause. Big thank you to Paula Berg.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.